It's the Whiskey Wizard.
Hello and welcome to the Whiskey Wizard, where we say that whiskey making takes scientific knowledge, an artisan's skill and dedication, and a bit of the wizard's alchemy of light, air, earth, and fire. Hey, tonight we're going to talk about the ties that surround the history and origins of American whiskey. As you'll see, the story of American whiskey truly is a family affair. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Well, almost. As we already have discussed the evolution of whiskey in colonial times and whiskey's role in the colonies, the Whiskey Rebellion and all that stuff, whiskey and the frontier went together, and so their histories are intertwined. Over the course of the 18th century, about 250,000 Scots-Irish came to America. Most of them headed west. They settled in western Pennsylvania, western Maryland, western Virginia, and the western parts of North and South Carolina. Daniel Boone first ventured into the eastern part of what would be Kentucky on a hunting expedition in 1767, and due to his reports of its beauty and bounty, the land soon acquired a somewhat revered idyllic status. According to Roseanne Reinemuth Hogan in her book Kentucky Ancestry, a churchman of the time referred to heaven as a Kentucky sort of place. The law allowed settlers to lay claim to 400 acres of land, provided that they build a cabin and plant a patch of corn prior to 1778. After that, surveyors and prospectors offered land for sale at very reasonable prices to pioneers heading west. A settler named Evan Williams actually built a whiskey distillery in Louisville in 1783, and this is the first recorded mention of a commercial distillery that we know of. Not long after that, Jacob Beam sold his first barrel commercially in 1795. 7 generations have led to today's Jim Beam Distillery. But Beam family members have worked at or had something to do with about every distillery in the state of Kentucky. According to Carla Harris Carlton in her book, Barrel Strength Bourbon, it all follows down from Jacob Beam to pretty much a who's who in the world of American whiskey production. She tells us that Jacob had sons, but only the one son, David, stayed to help in the family business, and he had a son, David M. Beam, who started D.M. Beam Company. Now his 2 sons, James, Jim Beam, and Park Beam, keep things rolling. Park had 2 sons, Earl and Carl. Carl became master distiller for his uncle Jim at Jim Beam Brands Company, and as well, so did his 2 sons, Baker and David. His other son, Earl, became master distiller at Heaven Hill, and this same position was attained as well by his grandson Parker and great-grandson Craig. Now the other son of David Beam, John Jack Beam, started Early Times Distillery, and his son Edward Beam carried on the tradition at Early Times, growing the business into being a household name. Now back to Jim Beam. He had 3 children. His son Jeremiah worked for him on the business and marketing side, and his daughter Margaret married Booker T. Noe, who worked for her father at Jim Beam Brands. Their son, Booker T. Noe III, became Jim Beam's head distiller, and that tradition was followed by his son, Booker T. Noe III, who holds the honor of head distiller at Jim Beam to this day. Okay, sort of going back to the beginning again. Remember Jacob Beam's sons? Joseph, the one who didn't get into the family business himself, had 2 sons, Minor Case and Joseph. Now, Minor Case started MC Beam, and his grandson Walter's son Jack started Barton Distillery. Jack's 2 sons, Paul and Stephen, started and ran the Limestone Branch Distillery. Okay, back to Joseph Beam. He started Stitzel Weller and Old Heaven Hill Springs distilleries. Now, Joseph had 7 sons. 7. Elmo helped start Maker's Mark, Roy, Frankfurt Distillery, and Wilmer, Taylor and Williams. Desmond was head distiller at Old Kennebec. Everett was master distiller at Michter's, and Harry was master distiller for Heaven Hill. And Roy's son Charles had a heavy hand in Four Roses, while Roy Jr. was at Frankfurt Distillers. So with all this deep family connection and tradition between all these distilleries, it's no wonder the American whiskey industry has had a history of friendly competition while garnering a spirit of solidarity, mutual respect, and cooperation, an attitude that carries on to this day. Of course, we have to mention the father and son team at Wild Turkey in Lawrenceburg, Kentucky, where master distiller Jimmy Russell worked as head distiller for over 60 years. Now his son Eddie, with 35 years invested, is taking the reins, and Eddie jokingly calls himself the new guy. Wow. Okay, there's a lot of family blood and bonds in the history of bourbon and American whiskey. And it seems without much digging, you can find countless examples of folks who came to work for one of these distilling dynasties, stayed for a lifetime, and became like family themselves. So it seems that whiskey is a family business, and I like to think we're all part of that extended family. So, my brothers and sisters, in this world of whiskey, here's to hoping we can share a fine pour or two of liquid sunshine sometime down on the trail. This is Douglas Dunbar, the Whiskey Wizard, for the Whiskey Roundtable. Cheers, Slanjava.